Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sean here for the Natural Gamers, and today I want to talk about a game I just finished, I finished it about a week ago. Sleeping Dogs, published by Square Enix. Now this game has kind of a, I don't know, like an interesting like kind of history a little bit. It was originally owned by Activision, and it was going to be the next, like the sequel or the next iteration of their true crime series. But they kind of like, I think about like halfway through production, they like canceled the game because they were just kind of, I think at the time they were worried about like basically just being an open world game in a world where Grand Theft Auto 4 exists, or the Grand Theft Auto series in general. And a lot of, you know, games that had come out at that time that were like kind of the open world type of like Grand Theft Auto-esque type games had kind of not done too well at that time. And I believe they just didn't feel like it was worth the gamble. So they canceled it, but then a few years later, Square Enix picked it up, and they finished the game, and they released it, and it came out a few weeks ago. And so my general opinion on the game is that I actually kind of enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm a big fan of like the Hong Kong kind of like kung fu, or just like karate movies and stuff like that, like more of like the modern day ones. And it definitely has that kind of aesthetic, and like just has that kind of atmosphere. It's kind of like what it does is it takes kind of like a lot of elements from a lot of different types of games and kind of melds them together. Like, you know, of course, obviously like the open world nature of it, it's kind of reminiscent of like Grand Theft Auto, and but kind of with the main play style, because you don't like do a lot of like gunfighting and stuff like that. It's more like hand-to-hand combat, excuse me, like type of like system. And so that kind of reminded me of the Yakuza series, which is actually a very cool series if you haven't checked it out yet. And that's kind of like a very much like a Hong Kong kind of like crime, like action movie type of atmosphere and aesthetic. So it kind of reminded me of those two games the most. But there's a lot of cool stuff in here, like, you know, the mechanics of the game, and like I said, like most of it's hand-to-hand combat. Like the fighting mechanics are actually pretty good for the most part. It kind of reminded me of Batman Arkham City or Arkham Asylum, that type of like combo-driven type of system where, you know, like linking combos and attacks as you're fighting a giant group of guys. And that was pretty cool. Like they actually did like a pretty good job with it, and it ended up being enjoyable, because a lot of times in these kind of games, always like the hand-to-hand combat or the melee combat is usually pretty weak, but not in Sleeping Dogs, because I mean that's the main like play mechanic. That's what kind of drives the game. That's the kind of stuff that you are doing as you're playing it. So it's a good thing that it was done well. You know, and there's other things you can do, like, you have your main story missions, and then you have like a plethora of side missions, which are from like, they go from the range of like being like really fun to kind of tedious. Like there's a hacking system where you like hack security cameras, and you go to your apartment and you watch security footage, and then you like tag like a drug dealer that's dropping off drugs or making a money exchange for the police, and they come and arrest them. But before you can do that, you gotta like take out like a group of guys that are kind of like hanging out by like the security box where you gain access to the security cameras. So you gotta take those guys out, and then it kind of introduces you to like this little mini like kind of code breaking game, which is just like more of a trial and error game where you try to decipher like a 5-number combination. And you have like 6 tries, and and then you like, you know, so you choose a bunch of random numbers, and then it tells you which numbers are good or which ones aren't good, and then ones that are, you know, or if they're the right number in the right place, like they turn green. If they're not green, like they can be like either like orange or black or red, and if they're red, they're the wrong numbers. If they're orange, that means it's the right number, but it's just not in the right place. And that's like, it's okay for like the first maybe like 4 or 5 times you do it, but after that it gets kind of boring. The other mini games they have like a karaoke mini game, which is kind of like a poor man's Guitar Hero type style. I know it's not totally like that, but that's kind of the only point of comparison I have for it. And then you can go on dates with girls, and do that kind of sort of stuff, and you have to complete challenges. There's like a street racing thing, and then you can choose whether or not, like, because you're an undercover cop, so you can do missions for the police, or you can do missions for like the Yakuza, like the gangs, the local gangs in the area and stuff like that, to progress the storyline. And like, you know, for the most part, like most of it's like, especially the storyline, the main storyline, if you like kind of like the John Woo era of action movies, like, you know, back when he was making movies in Asia, like, I think you'd like it. Like, if you're into that kind of stuff, I think you'll enjoy it. It's fairly compelling. But other than that, like, I mean, like, even with all the mini games and stuff, though, I did feel like there was kind of a lack of actually stuff to do sometimes. It is pretty limited. It's really easy to like go knock out all those side missions and stuff like that, even like right out of the gate, because once they introduce like one mini game or one new like little side mission, like you're able to, the world kind of just shows you where all the rest of them are, and you know, you could go just spend a couple hours knocking all those out before you even progress in the game at all. But overall, like, I think it's a lot of fun. I'm not sure if you want to spend like $60 on it. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd be kind of torn about that. Like, I'm a little bit split down the middle as far as like whether or not it's worth it, because I did enjoy the game, and I think overall, like, it's pretty successful. I mean, there are some problems with it, and like I said, just lack of variety, and like some of the side missions and things like that become tedious. But I think overall, like, if you're into these kind of open world type games, I think you're gonna feel like it was money well spent. I don't think you'd be really disappointed, to be honest, because it's maybe a little too short. I think I beat it in about 10 or 12 hours, and on top of that, I had done a lot of the side missions and a lot of the like the mini games and stuff like that. I completed most of them. So I don't know. I'd give it a recommend if you into the open world type games, and you know, because there's until Assassin's Creed 3 or Grand Theft Auto 5 comes out. There isn't really much happening in the open world like type crime games right now, so I think this would, I think it would cure your itch if you really like those games. But yeah, anyways, I'm Sean, and I'm a Natural Gamer, and I will talk to you next time I have something to talk about.